So the security dilemma is the idea that when one person takes an action that enhances their security, right, which is both offensive or defensive, when one side takes an action to increase their security, the opposite side also takes a equitable or an equal action. And then that's what leads to escalation. Mm-hmm. So if you consider like two neighbors, I grew up in a house in a cul-de-sac in Pennsylvania when I was a teenager. The neighbor had a house, we had a house. No fences, our yards crossed each other, no guard dogs, no security cameras. Like, we didn't even lock our front doors, right? And to get to school a lot of times, not to get to school, to get to the 7-Eleven so that we could get candy, we would cut through the neighbors' backyards. Well, then one day a neighbor put up a fence. So guess what every other neighbor did?
Put up a fence.
They all put up a fence. They didn't know why. Nobody knew why. The conversation on the street was, hey, did you see that, 158 put up a fence? I wonder if we should put up a fence. Oh, they probably got tired of the kids walking through the yard, or they probably got tired of this, or they wanted to protect that. So then everybody put up a fence. And then another house put up a security system. And then they had that little sticker on the window. Now secured by
ADT. Yeah.
So guess what everybody else did? Security windows.
Yeah.
And then somebody got a dog. So then guess what everybody started getting? Dogs. So the security dilemma is basically like when one person takes an action to protect themselves, other actors see that as a threat to their own security. So then they take a equitable action. But what ends up happening is when this person takes an action to secure themselves, and then this person takes the same action to secure themselves, guess what this one doesn't feel anymore?
Secure.
So then they take more. And then they take more. And then you have this escalatory action. So we have seen this play out in American politics going all the way back to before the second Bush administration. And it really came to a head during the Obama years because Obama was the first. So Obama had two things that were transformative to American politics. And I voted Obama. I was happy for Obama's administration. I was there on Inauguration Day, right? I was 2008. I was a year into my time at CIA. Like, my wife and I, girlfriend at the time, literally took the train into Washington, D.C. to see the inauguration, freezing ass day. But my point is, during Obama's administration, he signed more executive orders than any other president before him. So he set the trend that has now become normal. Presidents, when they can't get stuff through legislative, they just sign an executive order. Yeah. And then they assume that the next president's going to supersede their previous executive order. So that's the first thing he did. And the second thing he did is he was the first one to really hijack when you have the majority in the House and when you have the majority in the Congress and the majority in the Senate. He was the first one to force legislation through with the Obamacare. So by setting that precedent, that's what made it so that every president since then is like, well, as soon as you have control of both, you just force through your legislation and you let everybody else deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember hearing Trump doing that.
Yep. That
he did a bunch of stuff, I think Obamacare, he basically was executive order, changing this shit around. Yeah, and it does create a harmful precedent, I feel like, because it just really lacks cooperation. It's just hey, we're just going to push our shit through.
Yeah, it creates a harmful precedent because it gives people the option to force their own stuff through, which is not what the American people want. But then it also creates this situation where when the House is divided, nothing gets through. Everybody just puts a full stop. So you've got this, either we find our way around legislation or we freeze all legislation. And that's not moving us forward.